March 3rd, 1964, 2:17 p.m. 22-year-old Danny Rossi stood outside Stage 4, trying to light a cigarette. His hands were shaking so badly he'd already broken 2 matches. He just bombed his audition. 90 seconds, that's all he got. 90 seconds to prove he belonged on the Dean Martin show, and he'd frozen completely. The casting director had cut him off mid-song. "Thank you, that's enough, we'll call you." Translation: "Don't wait by the phone, kid." Danny had borrowed his brother's suit, 2 sizes too big. His shoes were held together with duct tape on the inside where nobody could see. He'd spent his last $47 getting to Los Angeles from Fresno. Everything he'd worked for, gone in 90 seconds. He finally got the cigarette lit, took a drag, tasted nothing. His eyes burned, but he wasn't going to cry. Not here, not where someone might see. The studio door opened behind him. Danny didn't turn around. Probably security, coming to make sure the failed audition actually left the property. "You got a light?" The voice was smooth, familiar, too familiar. Danny turned. Dean Martin stood 3 feet away, cigarette already in his mouth, waiting. To understand why this moment was significant, you need to understand where Danny Rossi came from. Fresno, California. Vineyards and dust. Danny's father, Salvatore Rossi, worked the grape fields, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week during harvest season. Came home every night smelling like earth and exhaustion. Salvatore had one rule: work is dignity. Entertainment is for people who can afford to fail. Danny was the youngest of 5 kids. His older brothers all worked the fields. His sisters worked the canneries. That was the Rossi way. You didn't dream, you survived. But Danny was different. He'd sneak his mother's radio into the garage after dinner, tune in to whatever music he could find. Jazz, pop, crooners. He'd sing along, quiet enough that his father wouldn't hear. One night, his mother caught him. Maria Rossi stood in the doorway, dish towel in her hands, listening to her youngest son sing "Fly Me to the Moon" to an audience of garden tools. She didn't say anything for a full minute. Then, "You sound like those men on the radio." Danny's face went red. "Sorry, Ma, I'll keep it down." "No." She walked closer. "You sound good, like those men on the radio, the ones who make people happy." "Dad says," "I know what your father says, but Danny, listen to me." She put her hand on his cheek. "Your father works so his children don't have to break their backs in fields. He just doesn't know there are other ways to break." Danny didn't understand then. 3 months later, he did. Salvatore Rossi died on November 12, 1963. Stroke. He was loading crates of grapes onto a truck. 1 minute he was working, the next he was on the ground, and by the time the ambulance arrived, he was gone. He was 54 years old. At the funeral, Danny's oldest brother, Marco, pulled him aside. "You're 22 now, time to grow up. We need you in the fields." Danny looked at his brother, at his calloused hands, at his bent shoulders. Marco was 31 but looked 45. "I can't, Marco." "What do you mean you can't?" "I need to try." "Try what?" "Singing, performing. I need to know if I can." Marco's face went hard. "Dad just died and you want to chase some fantasy?" "It's not a fantasy." "Then what is it?" Danny didn't have an answer, not one his brother would understand. But his mother did. After everyone left the cemetery, Maria Rossi handed Danny an envelope. Inside, $200, her savings, every penny she'd hidden from grocery money, from birthday gifts, from decades of stretching meals. "Ma, I can't." "Yes, you can. Your father worked his entire life so you could choose. He just didn't know you'd choose something he couldn't understand. Touching his face, "Go sing, Danny, but don't come home until you know for sure, one way or the other." Danny left Fresno on January 4th, 1964. He had his mother's $200, one suitcase, and a dream he couldn't articulate to anyone who asked. Los Angeles was bigger, louder, and crueler than anything he'd prepared for. He lived in a boarding house in North Hollywood, $8 a week, shared bathroom, walls so thin he could hear his neighbors breathing. He auditioned everywhere, nightclubs, talent shows, radio stations, anything. Every single one, rejection. "You're good, kid, but we're looking for something different. Too old-fashioned, the sound's changing. Come back when you've got more experience." By the end of February, Danny had $53 left. He'd eaten nothing but white bread and peanut butter for 2 weeks. His hands shook from hunger, and his voice was getting weaker. One more shot, that's what he told himself. One more audition, and if it didn't work, he'd go home, get a job, admit his brother was right. The Dean Martin Show was the biggest variety show on television. Millions of viewers, A-list guests, musical performances that could launch careers. Getting on that show meant everything. Danny had heard they were looking for background singers, male vocalists, someone who could harmonize, someone who wouldn't outshine the star but could hold their own. He called the studio 4 times before someone finally gave him an audition slot. March 3rd, 1964, 2 p.m. Danny showed up at 1:30, borrowed suit, duct-taped shoes, hands shaking. The waiting room was full. 20 other guys, all better dressed, all more confident. Danny was called in at 2:15. The casting director, a woman named Ruth Caldwell, barely looked up from her clipboard. Name? Danny Rossi. What are you singing? That's Amore. She glanced up. You know that's a Dean Martin song, right? Yes, ma'am. Bold choice. Go ahead. Danny opened his mouth. Nothing came out. His throat closed. His mind went blank. The room spun. Ruth looked at her watch. Any time, Mr. Rossi. Danny forced out the first line. His voice cracked. He pushed through the second line, completely off key. Ruth held up her hand. Thank you, that's enough. We'll call you. Please, I can do better. We'll call you. Danny walked out. 90 seconds, that's all he got. He stood outside stage 4, trying to light a cigarette. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. This was it, the end. He'd go back to Fresno, tell his mother he tried, get a job in the fields, and spend the rest of his life wondering what if. The studio door opened. You got a light? Danny turned. Dean Martin stood there, casual, like they were old friends. Danny's brain search-shorted. He fumbled for his matches, dropped them, picked them up, finally managed to light Dean's cigarette. Thanks, kid. Dean took a drag, studied Danny's face. You just audition? Yeah. How'd it go? Danny laughed, bitter. 90 seconds. I got 90 seconds and I blew it. Dean nodded slowly. What'd you sing? That's Amore, your song. Why that one? My mother loves it. Plays it every Sunday morning. Danny stopped. Doesn't matter now. Dean was quiet for a moment. You drive here from somewhere? Fresno. Long drive. Yeah. And you came all this way to audition for 90 seconds? Danny looked down. Sounds stupid when you say it like that. Sounds like you care. Dean flicked ash from his cigarette. Most guys in there, they're just looking for a paycheck. You drove from Fresno. That's different. No, but it means something. Dean pulled open the studio door. Come on. What? Come on, you're auditioning again. I already had 90 seconds with someone who wasn't listening. Now you get 5 minutes with someone who is. Danny followed Dean Martin back into stage 4. Ruth Caldwell looked up from her desk, saw Dean, immediately stood. "Mr. Martin, I didn't know you were—" "Ruth, this is Danny Rossi. He's auditioning again." Ruth's face tightened. "Sir, we already—" "I know what you already did. Now we're doing it different." Dean wasn't unkind, but he wasn't asking. "Danny, go stand center stage." Danny's legs barely worked. The stage was massive, empty, bright lights overhead. He felt like he was going to throw up. Dean walked to the piano, sat down. "What key do you sing That's Amore in?" I don't know. I just sing it." Dean smiled. "Okay, we'll figure it out." He played a chord. "Start when you're ready." Danny looked at Ruth, at the empty seats, at Dean Martin sitting at a piano, waiting. He thought about his mother, about the $200, about his father dying in a field. He started singing. This time his voice didn't crack. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't smooth, but it was honest, raw, real. Dean played underneath, following Danny's rhythm, adjusting to his pitch.
When Danny finished, the stage was completely silent. Ruth Caldwell was staring. Dean stood from the piano, walked to Danny. "You're flat on the bridge, and you rush the tempo. But you've got something most of these guys don't." "What's that?" "Heart. I can hear it." Dean turned to Ruth. "Hire him." Ruth blinked. "Sir?" "Background vocalist. Start him next week." "Mr. Martin, I don't think—" "Ruth." Dean's voice was gentle but firm. "I've been doing this a long time. Trust me. Hire him." Ruth looked at Danny, at his borrowed suit, at his duct-taped shoes. "Fine. Monday, 9 a.m. Rehearsal." Danny stood there, unable to process what just happened. Dean was already walking toward the door. "Mr. Martin, I don't know what to say." Dean stopped. "Don't say anything. Just show up Monday and work. And get yourself some shoes that fit." "I can't afford—" Dean pulled out his wallet, took out 2 20s, handed them to Danny. "Now you can." Danny stared at the money. "I'll pay you back." "You'll pay someone else forward." Dean put his sunglasses on. "That's how this works." "Why are you doing this?" Dean paused in the doorway. "You know how many auditions I bombed before someone gave me a shot?" "No." "Neither do I. Lost count." Dean smiled. "But I remember every single person who told me I wasn't good enough. And I remember the one guy who said I was. His name was Ernie McKay, band leader in Cleveland. I auditioned for him in 1940. Terrible audition. I mean, terrible. Forgot half the words." "What did he do?" "He hired me anyway. Said I had something he couldn't teach. Turns out what I had was desperation and a refusal to quit." Dean opened the door. "You got those too, kid. Don't waste 'em." And then Dean Martin walked out. Danny Rossi worked on the Dean Martin Show for 3 years. Background vocalist, harmonies, sometimes a solo line if the guest star needed support. He wasn't famous, didn't become a household name, but he worked, steady, reliable, professional. Dean barely spoke to him during those 3 years. A nod in the hallway, "Good work, kid," after a particularly difficult recording session. That was it. Danny didn't need more. The job was enough. In 1967, Danny left the show. He'd been offered a spot as lead vocalist for a traveling band. Better pay, more exposure, a chance to actually perform instead of support. His last day, he went to Dean's dressing room. Dean was reading a script, cigarette burning in an ashtray. "Mr. Martin, I just wanted to say thank you for everything." Dean looked up. "You leaving?" "Yeah, got a gig with a band, traveling circuit." Nodded. "Good, you're ready." "I don't know about that." "I do." Dean set down his script. "You came in here 3 years ago, scared kid with duct tape in his shoes. You leave here a professional. That's growth." Danny's throat tightened. "You changed my life." "No, you changed your life. I just opened a door. You walked through it." "Still." Dean stood, shook Danny's hand. "Go make your mother proud." "I will." "And Danny?" "Yeah?"
When some scared kid shows up to your audition and bombs it, remember how this felt. Remember what one person believing in you can do. Danny Rossi never became a superstar. He sang with bands for 15 years, weddings, corporate events, cruise ships, casino lounges. He made a living, a good one. In 1982, he opened a music school in Fresno, Rossi School of Music. Voice lessons, piano, guitar. He taught kids who couldn't afford fancy conservatories, kids from the fields, kids from families like his. And every kid who walked through his door nervous, underprepared, convinced they weren't good enough, Danny gave them the same thing Dean gave him, a chance. One day, a 16-year-old girl came in for an audition, scholarship program. Her family worked the same fields Danny's father had. She was terrified, sang off-key, forgot the words halfway through. Danny stopped her. "Thank you, that's enough." The girl's face fell. "I'm sorry, I wasted your time." "No, you didn't waste anything. You're scared. Nerves kill talent faster than anything else." Danny pulled out a chair. "Sit down. Let's try again. This time, forget I'm here. Sing for whoever makes you feel safe." The girl stared. "You mean I get another chance?" "Everyone gets another chance. That's the rule here." The girl sang again. Better, not perfect, but honest. Danny hired her as his teaching assistant, part-time, paid her $50 a week to help younger students while she trained.
Years later, that girl, Sophia Martinez, became a vocal coach in Los Angeles, worked with Grammy winners, always credited Danny Rossi as the teacher who believed in her when nobody else did. Dean Martin died on Christmas Day, 1995. Danny was 53 years old, still teaching, still running his school in Fresno. He didn't go to the funeral, didn't feel like he had the right. They'd barely spoken after Danny left the show, but he sent flowers, attached a card. "Mr. Martin, you told me to pay it forward. I've tried. Every scared kid who walks into my school gets the same chance you gave me. Not because I'm generous, because you taught me that one person believing in someone can change everything. Thank you for being that person for me. Danny Rossi." 3 months later, Danny received a package. No return address, just his name and the school's address. Inside, a photograph, black and white, Dean Martin at a piano. On the back, handwritten, "For Danny Rossi, who proved Ernie McKay was right. Keep opening doors. Dean." The photo was dated December 20th, 1995, 5 days before Dean died. Danny Rossi is 82 years old now, still teaches 3 days a week, mostly online these days, video calls with students across the country. His school in Fresno is still open, run by former students. Over 40 years, the Rossi School of Music has taught more than 3,000 students. Not all of them became professionals, most didn't, but every single one of them learned the same lesson Danny learned on March 3, 1964, outside Stage 4 at NBC Studios. One person believing in you can change everything. That photograph of Dean at the piano hangs in the school's lobby. Underneath it, a plaque. "This school exists because Dean Martin stopped to listen. We honor his legacy by doing the same." This story isn't about fame or success. It's about the moment someone sees you when you're invisible. Dean Martin was one of the biggest stars in the world. He didn't have to walk outside, didn't have to ask for a light, didn't have to bring a failed audition back inside and demand they get another chance. But he did, because Dean remembered. Remembered bombing auditions, remembered being told he wasn't good enough, remembered the one person, Ernie McKay, who took a chance on a scared kid from Steubenville, Ohio, who couldn't even remember the lyrics. And when Dean saw that same fear in a 22-year-old kid from Fresno with duct tape in his shoes, Dean didn't see failure, he saw himself. Legacy isn't what you achieve, it's what you make possible for others. Dean Martin's legacy isn't just his music, his movies, his iconic status as an entertainer. It's every person he gave a chance to, every door he opened, every scared kid he looked at and said, "Try again." Danny Rossi has taught 3,000 students. Those students have taught thousands more. That's Dean Martin's real legacy. One cigarette, one conversation, one chance. That's all it takes to change a life. If this story moved you, if you've ever been the scared kid or the person who gave someone a chance, subscribe for more untold stories about legends who lifted others up. Drop a comment if someone believed in you when nobody else did. And remember, Dean Martin could have kept walking. He didn't. That choice created a ripple that's still spreading 60 years later. What choice will you make today?